You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly. To another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. We cover news and events from the week that was, talking Mexico-based promotions and top independents, along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Speaker, and more, as well as our partners at thechairshot.com. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and let's bring in my co-partner, which is pretty redundant because a partner implies a co-partner. This week is who? It is the one and only Brendan Barr.
Hey, and no fans. We are not in super speed. Just Miranda's really excited this week. Those of you listening on Fast Forward, I really want to hear your results on that. That's Miranda, you were very, very fast today.
Yes.
Which is
It could have been some of the sugar that I had earlier, or it could be all the things now I'm thinking about running in my head that I have to get done. As we talked about, we are squeezing in one last episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast before we all head out to Expo Lucha in Philadelphia, and it's just a very busy time. So on the heels of our 100th episode from last week, again, a big thank you to Ruben Zamora who stopped by. There is so much that we are all doing to get ready for Expo Lucha, but of course we had to record a new episode of the podcast in the meantime, and so it is myself and Brendan this week, no Dusty as well. So I think that too, usually Dusty is my buffer. Dusty kind of helps me break up that intro.
Gotcha.
Went from 0 to 100. I think it's because there was no Dusty. I'd like to blame it on Dusty.
You sounded like a cartoon character for a second there. It was great. I was enjoying it.
I have heard that. My middle school, long story short, my middle school, language arts English teacher used to say I sound like a cartoon character, and that never quite got out of my head because I don't think he knew as well if that was a compliment or not. I think he thought I was pretty annoying as well, so I think that was his way of saying I was annoying without being annoying. But
no, I meant this in a good way, although yeah. Although, generally the advice I get from people, is to slow down because I also get excited on the show and talk.
Oh yeah. That's just my telltale issue in general. When I'm talking, especially when I'm announcing, I go too fast. And so it's just a daily struggle that I have. In general, that I just speak too fast all the time. If this is the fact that we've been doing this now for almost 3 years, and now that you're noticing.
Oh no, it was a special one tonight.
Yeah.
If you listen back later, you'll maybe hear what I'm talking about. But
yeah.
I think you, as you mentioned, it's just we're in a hurry. We're all on caffeine and sugar because none of us are gonna sleep until we get on the plane. That's not completely true, but it's also not totally a lie.
Yeah, exactly. Not a lie, not the truth either. It's going to be a long day, for me in particular, because I have a full day's worth of work and travel. You are actually going an overnight. You're flying out tomorrow night. I'm flying out Friday night, and a pretty just long week ahead. So very excited. Don't get us wrong. Very, very excited.
I
But
believe I will be the only one of our trio at the Lucha Bowl, but none of you will have heard this by the time the Lucha Bowl happens, so you'll have to figure that out. I just processed that. Yeah, we're recording this. It should be going up while Expo Lucha is going on, right?
mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, it should be going up maybe a little early, depending, because we are recording this a day early, so it may get up maybe Friday, but for sure Saturday.
Yeah. All right. So if you hear this before the Lucha Bowl, you are welcome to find me, but we'll get into to more of the Expo Lucha stuff later, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. So with that, let's go get started. We've kind of simmered down. We've calmed down. Not to put you on the spot again, Brendan, but it's just the two of us this week. So
we got this.
We got this. So with that, I'm going to have you start us off with news of the week.
Excellent. So you already mentioned that we talked to Ruben last week, and one of the things that Mass Republic was doing was getting visas for luchadors. And on social media the last few weeks, people have been announcing that they've gotten approved visas. So Cubs fan says this is a batch of like 40 visas that are associated with a promotion. He didn't say which promotion, so I'm sort of reading into it that that's probably going to be Masked Republic. But as it stands, we now know for sure Esfinge and Toxin have both said that they've got ones. I was trying to comb social media real quick to get more, because I remembered seeing more, but it wasn't until some Cubs fan pointed out that the reason for that is because of the mass approvals. So as they trickle in, we might get more of an idea who we'll see here in the United States. I have on the Indie Roundup talked extensively about both Esfinge and Toxin. I'm actually really excited to see Toxin in the United States because, as much as Gringo Loco calls himself the base god, Toxin is a big old boy who seems to just hold the high flyers in the perfect place every time I'm watching him. So you can really do some next level lucha stuff with him involved in a match, and I'm excited for American fans to be able to see that. But yeah, good news. It sounds like some progress has been made on the work visa. So we might be seeing a lot more lucha talent coming into the States in the very near future.
Exciting.
Right? And other exciting news, fan favorite miniature wrestler Microman said that he wants a piece of Masquerita Dorada, the other very popular in the United States mini wrestler. He doesn't care what side of the ring it's on. It sounds like he says he'll do a tag team or he'll do a versus match. He just wants to work with the guy. I think that would be amazing. And honestly, I think there's a number of promotions in the States that would jump for the opportunity to do that. So Microman has wished it into the universe. Fans, tell your promoters you want to see it happen, because I want to see it happen. I know I'll be talking to Ruben over the weekend saying, Microman and Masquerita Dorada, make it happen. Can you imagine calling that, Miranda? Can you?
That would be something else, to say the least. That would be fascinating to call.
And then, and slightly fun news, even more fun than that, I should say, is they released so for those of you who are completely living under the Lucha umbrella and you don't go outside for your entertainment, there's this little TV show, or this little internet show called Stranger Things that released season this week.
Yes.
And in Mexico, they released a promo for it wherein Santo wrestles Demogorgon. So it's
hit the internet like crazy.
Yeah, it's up on, I was going to say, it's up on YouTube and it's trending pretty hard. So, you guys should totally see it. It's really cool. If you have not seen that promo, by the time my voice hits you, all you need to do is put Santo versus Demogorgon into the YouTube search engine and it will get you there. You will not regret it, especially if you're a fan of old, luchador movies, because it hits that energy.
Yes,
perfectly.
It does.
And then, it gives just the right hints of Stranger Things too. So if you're a fan of that show, like I am, it just pushes many of the good feel buttons. That's my news of the week. I'm going to transition real fast over to the indie roundup. We had, a couple of things go on. We had Progress Pro Wrestling had Super Strong Style. I'm going to come back to that because I think there's more to talk about on that one. As always, IWRG did 1,000,001 shows, but I did want to cover their Sunday show a little bit here. So I'm going to start partway through the night here. They had a trios match. Luca, Sean Moore, and Yorvac versus Big Boy, Big Chicoche, and X-Fly. Luca, Sean Moore, and Yorvac won that one. Those are all kind of guys that you will only see in the indies and in Mexico. It's a good middle of the card match. This is all streaming. I don't have a lot of commentary on there. It's just kind of, there were 6 matches and I took the top half of the card. Gran Pandemonium, Hijo de Pandemonium, and Pandemonium Jr. Were in a match against Fly Warrior, Fulgor, and Mr. Mike, and the Pandemoniums won that one. Although, afterwards, as IWRG is wont to do, there was, an angle at the end. Black Generation showed up. And then Old School, another group, came out and fought them. So it was a giant scrum, and this was only the semi-main event. And then in the main event, you had Dr. Wagner Jr. and one of his boys, Galeno Del Mal, against Cibernetico and Hijo del Pirata Morgan. The way this one ended, though, was Cibernetico fouled his own partner, Pirata Morgan, or Hijo de Pirata Morgan. And then he challenged him after the pinfall happened for a match for the title. So, I don't know if that's the way that I would go about getting a title shot, but everybody's got to do what they got to do. So take the L to maybe get a shot at the title. Might work. But yeah, so that was IWRG on Sunday. Could be interesting. It's always funny to me to see Dr. Wagner Jr. getting wins where he's not really the focus of the aftermatch, because I know that's probably something he's not a big fan of. But to get around, Progress had Super Strong Style. We did announce that there were a couple of lucha talents involved, including Aramis and Johnny Mundo, Johnny, this is where we
Progress?
I was getting to that one.
Yes.
But yeah, this is where we needed
Johnny
Dusty.
Mundo, Morrison, Elite.
Elite is the other one that's
Impact.
been used recently.
Johnny,
and then he was Johnny Progress this time. and Jack Evans. And as many promotions are wont to do, they created Luchador on Luchador Violence, where they had Johnny Progress against Jack Evans in the first round. You could have had all the luchadors advance into the second round, but no. But Aramis also advanced into the second round with a win over Robbie X. And Johnny loses in the next round to eventual winner. I why didn't I swear to God, I put his name on my notes, and then here they are, not in the right place. Chris Ridgway. So yes, Johnny did lose to eventual winner Chris Ridgway, but on that second night, we did still have Lucha talent represented because Aramis and Jack Evans teamed up to face the Lycos Gym, Kid Lycos and Kid Lycos 2. And they did win that one. So, that sounds like it's a fairly good for Lucha content tournament, especially for all the way over in the UK. Yeah. So there you go. There's your Lucha-centric results for Super Strong Style. Just to show you how much we care on the show, I didn't even have Chris Ridgway's name in the right place on this because I was so disappointed it wasn't Johnny Progress. Sorry, Chris Ridgway. But that's my indie roundup. So I think we're going to do that thing, right?
Yes. Now we are going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Math, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's straight out of the bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Masked Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
All right, and we are back with the second half of the show. A big thank you, as always, to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, we are going to do our best to do justice to the segment, because Lord knows this is where Dusty excels. We are going to kick it off with AEW, and there's actually a lot of news that's happening just within really the past few hours tonight on Dynamite.
Yeah, well, they did have a little premium live event, as the other company would call it, over the weekend. But the news out of that was pretty slim for Lucha fans. So we'll start there. Andrade was the Joker. So I did say off air, and I will go over this. I think that's a good sign for Andrade's future, because the Joker, as far as their promotion materials and the way the match builds, is always a big deal. So even your casual fan will know this is a big deal. Mm-hmm. So even though Andrade didn't win the event, Kyle O'Reilly did win the event. It still feels like they're trying to make a bigger deal out of Andrade. So good. Like, do it, because you need to make him a bigger deal. He's bringing the that Ingo Bernable swag now that that Roosh guy is hanging out with him. Who's ever heard of that guy? We did also have some speculation about and it stems out of AEW, but it's also about AAA. Jeff Hardy, I don't have an update on this from this week's episode, but the rumor was that Jeff Hardy was hurt, which may put their appearance at Triple Mania Tijuana in jeopardy as well, which is where they're challenging for the tag team championship. So, they're going against Los Hermanos Lee.
Yeah. Still a very big match and a lot at stake. Yeah, if Jeff is injured, is that match completely out? That's what we're waiting to see.
Yeah, exactly. And then, as Miranda mentioned, we have details that are so we're recording this We're recording this on Wednesday while Dynamite is still on the air. So
yes. Granted, we are also on West Coast time, so there are some things that have already been shared online, but we have not yet seen some of these clips yet. So we are reporting as we find literally any information.
Right. But the big news, right, that on social media is about the new singles championship, the Atlantic Championship. And Miranda, you had found some details on this for us.
Yes, AEW has announced a new championship, the All-Atlantic Championship. They are going to crown the inaugural champion at Forbidden Door on June 26th. And of course, just like any good old event that AEW puts together, the match itself to determine the new champion will be determined by a tournament, which began tonight on Dynamite. We had the very first qualifier of that with Pac versus Buddy Matthews. And a note that this tournament is set up, and if you see the visual out there on social media, of competitors from different countries. So Buddy Matthews representing Australia, Pac representing the United Kingdom. And then as far as other competitors announced, we do have Miro versus Ethan Page lined up. Miro representing Bulgaria, Ethan Page representing Canada. Malachi Black versus Penta Oscuro. Of course, Penta representing Mexico and Malachi Black representing the Netherlands. And then something you noted as probably a level of favoritism.
Probably.
Is that New Japan has their own bracket in this, and so they will have two unnamed, right now so far unnamed competitors from New Japan in their own bracket. The winners from each of these matches will compete in a 4-way for the All-Atlantic Championship on June 26th at Forbidden Door. So that too is probably why they have New Japan has its own bracket. They want to really have that representative in the match. But then why don't, just have someone from Japan beat from someone from another country. I'm not sure. But this title is being really touted as a international title. The way that it's been presented by AEW is that it's meant to represent the 100 plus countries that AEW appears in, and commentary put over that the presence that AEW has internationally, that it's the number one promotion in the United Kingdom, and so as you know, my suspicion to this is that this could be a title that could be defended internationally. It could be a way to not only have it be fought after internationally, but to bring in international competitors in matches that would add a little bit more oomph to it. Now it also makes sense that it's being presented at the Forbidden Door if it's really meant to be the crux of it is that it's an international title. I know you have your own thoughts on it, Brendan, as you kind of shared online. I don't disagree with you on those. I'm trying to find the silver lining of it, but I know you have some thoughts about AEW's approach to this.
Well, first off, as much as I love tournaments, and I really do love tournaments, my first comment that I made was this is different from the interim tournament we've got going on. And right? Like, and because there was some conflation that was happening. Somebody I was talking to about the interim tournament, I realized now, in looking at this, was confused by having heard rumors of this tournament, because he said, didn't New Japan get 2 slots in this tournament? And I'm like, I don't know. And here it is. I see why they got those conflated. Having overlapping tournaments, while exciting to hardcore fans, is not necessarily the best way to keep casual fans engaged.
Yeah.
But to the point about it being international, I had made the comment, does that mean that you can have different number one contenders based on the country? Are only people from other countries allowed to win it? If Penta wins, is no other Mexican allowed to challenge for it? Like, I mean, what are the rules?
Yeah, we don't know if this is, really, as to say it in loose terms, very gimmicked, where, it is, there's some kind of international stipulation to it, or is it just targeting a different audience? Who knows? It would sound like it, based off of AEW being AEW, that there would be somewhat of a gimmick to it. How this will impact the overall rankings as well, because as we've also noted that over the past few weeks with the rankings, it gets to be very confusing when you have rankings for the World Championship versus the TNT Championship. Same thing, even in the women's division. And so how would, rankings for the All-Atlantic title go into play? I feel like it's just going to be targeting a different set of wrestlers. It's I think going to just be more targeting international wrestlers more than the base wrestlers. And that means you have maybe more, guest stars or those that are truly going through the quote unquote forbidden door, competing for this championship more than others. We see right now, Scorpio Sky and now apparently Wardlow, is going to be, the next in line for the TNT championship. The interim world championship is in flux, but, allows for people from New Japan, possibly from AAA, possibly from other companies to come in and compete for this title, to have something to shoot for, while, keeping those other title scenes separate. Hypothetically, in my head.
But the flip side again, if you look at the casual viewers, they're gonna start tuning some of these out. Like belts just for the sake of belts is going to be too many belts.
Very true.
If they introduce the Trios Championship, which they've been alluding that they are going to do for a long time, you're gonna have that as well. But you'll now have 1, 2, 3 major singles championship for the men.
Yeah, and I'm surprised they introduced this All-Atlantic before they introduced the trios.
The rumor is that something is holding that back, like somebody being injured or discrepancies with potential ways to introduce it, that sort of thing. So who knows? But you're gonna start. So like I say, you'll start having people kind of just tuning it out. Like it will once again, like people will probably start calling this Atlantic Championship the Dark Championship, because based on what you're suggesting, where we're going to see people that aren't necessarily contracted to AEW, which means that they may not have as much. TNT may not have as big of an interest in having them on unless they're going to be a proven ratings draw. We might see, more of that on Dark, or Dark Elevation more specifically. And on hopefully on other people's programming. However, the Forbidden Door seems to mostly swing one direction, so I don't know that will be the case. But I did think of that. Like, it'd be nice to see. We're on this show. It's pretty obvious who we're going to be rooting for. So it'd be nice to see Penta go over to New Japan and defend it at one of their pay-per-views, right? Like, that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
At the same time, it would be equally cool to just have some awareness of these other international like if AAA has like a mini tournament for who to send up here, if in the weird circumstance that Penta doesn't win. Right, and then they can maybe AEW can run a little package of some AAA programming, so people could become more aware of what they did to send that wrestler up here. I mean, we all know it'll be Vikingo or Laredo Kid, but come on. There's a lot of potential. There's also a lot of potential for things to go completely pear-shaped. So AEW don't screw this up.
Yeah, I mean, again, we just did this whole thing, a whole tournament for the Owen Hart, Cup, both men's and women's, and that I feel like was a mixed bag of, reception. So I think the fact that we are now going into another tournament right away for something brand new. Two
tournaments.
Yeah.
The interim tournament is still happening.
Exactly. It's just a lot to process in a short amount of time.
And the interim tournament, the argument could be said that they didn't have a lot of choice on that, but they kind of did. They could have just appointed 2 people and said, you guys are wrestling to be the interim champion, instead of having a whole tournament. But I agree with the unspoken thought here that it is more AEW's kind of consistent policy to have a tournament to appoint a new champion. So they probably just felt backed into a wall to have 2 tournaments at the same time. But that's what we've got. I'm going to double check to make sure Dusty hasn't fed us any more information while we were chatting. That's how we're getting our AEW updates.
Yes.
Dusty's on social media telling us things. I did forget one more. We had Thunder Rosa did an open challenge, and anybody who's watched wrestling for more than 5 minutes knows that if you do an open challenge, you should expect the worst possible result when you call out to the locker room. In my lifetime, it dates all the way back to ECW. You would know that it would be somebody either making a big return or making a big step up, and it's been true no matter what. I saw it all the way in Don Owens Promotions up here in the Pacific Northwest. If you call out to the locker room, somebody's music's going to play and the fans are going to go bananas.
Yeah.
This time it was Marina Shafir answered the call. On the scale of things, that may not have been as big, but I still think this is going to be a fun battle, and take my money, please.
Yeah.
And we know it's not over. So Thunder Rosa did win the match, but she did not win this round of the war, let's call it, because after the match, she did get beat down, according to Dusty. I don't know how that played out yet. I don't know if there was a cheap shot involved. But yeah, Thunder Rosa got the aftermatch beatdown that is traditional for starting a feud. So, here you go. Thunder Rosa and Marina Shafir, strap yourselves in. This is probably going to be like a 3-month build to like an exploding cage match or something just crazy. Well, sorry, they're not going to do exploding matches ever again.
Yeah, both women are fighters, so I think they're definitely going to leverage the fact that they both have that, mixed martial arts experience. MMA yeah.
But that's why I'm excited for it, and both of them have hybrid styles outside of that. Thunder Rosa has a little bit of lucha libre, and Marina Shafir has a little bit of the Japanese strong style. So we're gonna, you're gonna see similarities as well as clashing of styles, and you're gonna see two women that really just their whole brand is they don't back down from a challenge. So they're gonna keep going. And I mean, that's why I was trying to escalate it in a silly way, but I mentioned the exploding ring and realized that AEW's already done that. But it's gonna keep going like that. It's gonna get tougher and tougher. It's gonna be, the dog collars and maybe barbed wire or ropes. I mean, somebody's gonna introduce an idea and the other one won't back down from it, and it's just gonna build like that. And I'm literally here for this. This is gonna be this has potential to be feud of the year, really.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I kept cutting you off, Miranda. So I know you have strong opinions on both of these women, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts.
No, I think it's just to echo what we were just saying. They both have strong MMA background, and I think it's going to be a different angle. I think we're also going to see a different side of Marina Shafir in now this competitor challenger role. That I think will be interesting to see if AEW can do something that WWE may have not done. I also still think we're still coming up against, some of the issue of, TV time for your women's champion. And is she really going to get more airtime and more of that card placement that you would think that your longest, women's title would have? There's a lot to it, but I feel pretty optimistic too. This will be something different for Thunder Rosa. Her feud with Britt Baker was one very driven by, lots of heat, of anger. This one I think will be driven a lot through a level of competition. Thunder Rosa had an outstanding match with Serena Deeb. At Double or Nothing. And so I think they're really leveraging her with people that have this sense of athleticism, a sense of wrestling that works very well in the ring, a sense of aggressiveness. So I think that now writing on that will continue to work in her favor, at least wrestling wise. TV time wise, story wise, I can't say yet, but at least wrestling quality wise.
So I do have something to say on that. The semi-official excuse for the way the women have been handled at various times has been ratings. They've said that the women's spots have been consistently the lowest rated spots, which is why they've been, they're still committed to doing it, I believe was their official stance, but they're also giving them like the worst 15 minutes of the show and cramming all the women's angles into that 15 minutes. But here's the deal for this. Thunder Rosa has been proven ratings. Well, she's been in some of the highest rated spots on the show. Marina Shafir is a crossover superstar, so she will be bringing unique eyes that aren't necessarily wrestling fans if they make this a high profile match. If they want to invest in making women's wrestling a draw for AEW, this is one of the best feuds they could do. And I think if they send Miranda Shafir over to talk to ESPN and they promote it that way and promote it to sports fans, and then they don't get too ridiculous with the gimmick matches, this could be a big crossover feud that not only pulls good ratings, but pulls unique viewers. So it has a lot of potential to be really good depending on how it's handled.
Yeah, agreed. I think that does it for this week in AEW.
That's all I've got notes for. Thank you, Dusty, for providing us notes from the future out there in your
from the future.
From the future.
Great. I think that now leads us, because we did already talk a little bit about the AAA news with Jeff Hardy being possibly being out. We still don't have an update on his status. And until we do, right now, I guess that leaves his match with Matt at Triple Mania, I guess, very much up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So we will continue to keep posted on that. We're going to jump into some Major League Wrestling. And this week is really just talking about some match announcements that have been made for Battle Riot. That is scheduled for June 23rd, I believe, in New York. This is a staple event for Major League Wrestling. And the Battle Riot, if you don't know, is a 40-man Rumble style match. And so that it is a mashup of a Battle Royal, Royal Rumble, and Anything Goes Street Fight, where you're going to have 40 wrestlers with a new participant entering every 60 seconds, and eliminations occur by pinfall, submission, or throwing an individual over the top rope. Some new additions that people may want to keep their eye out on for the Rumble or for the Battle Riot is Mini Abismo Negro has been announced for it, as well as Casey Navarro. I believe we've already talked about Matt Cross, and many more have been announced. Also previously announced Killer Cross, Lince Dorado, and of course others within the MLW roster like the Von Erichs, Alex Kane, Richard Holiday, Jacob Fatu, and much, much more. However, very recently we've gotten a few specific match announcements for Battle Riot. First off, Taya Valkyrie has been announced to make a return to MLW once again, and she'll be facing Brittany Blake.
Yeah.
As well as Scarlett Bordeaux will be making her featherweight division debut. And this is a fairly big deal because this is, she has wrestled on the independent scene since leaving the WWE, but this will be one of those bigger televised matches for her. So we'll really be able to see her work back in the ring.
And a lot of casual fans may not have actually been able to see her work from before the WWE either, because she was in Mexico, or she was in Progress, or not Progress, she was in the UK. And a lot of places where TV was harder to get. So.
Yeah. So the big news, though, coming out this week is that it was announced that Alex Hammerstone will be defending the MLW World Heavyweight Championship against Bandito. The graphic also specified that Bandito is being associated with Cesar Duran. There has been quite a feud brewing between Hammerstone and Cesar Duran for, months now. And so I think this is another ploy by Cesar Duran, to try and get that championship off of him. And why not use one of the most talented luchadors in the world to try and accomplish this?
Well, Cesar Duran loves to say lucha and violence, and Bandito is good at both. So.
Yes. So that is going to be something to keep an eye out for at Battle Riot, Saturday, June 23rd. It is going to be scheduled in New York. So those New York fans out there are going to get a treat with MLW being live there. We haven't been able to cover MLW over the past few weeks, but this is just an FYI on some matches that you can check out from previous episodes of Fusion. Last week, there was a plethora of lucha matches to watch out for. Oh,
such a good episode for lucha fans. Sorry, keep going.
Yes, no. Speaking of Bandito, we had Bandito versus Flamita. Even though we've seen this match before, specifically in Ring of Honor, this too was one where it was a great balance of entertainment, but also quality. So a little bit shorter than some of the matches they've had in Ring of Honor, but still something that it doesn't matter if you've seen it before. You should watch it again because it's definitely different than what you see or they've done in Ring of Honor. As well as Los Parks faced Gangrel and Pagano in a very violent match.
There's no way that kid couldn't be violent. Sorry.
Yeah, very violent match. So I would recommend it, but also caution you that if you're not into violence and spikes being driven into someone's head, you may want to skip over this. But if you love it, you should go check out Major League Wrestling YouTube page and watch last week's episode of Fusion, because there you go. The week before that, another great week for Lucha Libre. The show started off with Davey Richards versus Danny Limelight Rivera. In trios action, the team of Microman, Aerostar, and El Dragon versus Aries, TJP, and Mini Abismo Negro. The stipulation for that match was that if the team of Microman, Aerostar, and El Dragon lost, Microman would have had to leave MLW. Spoiler alert, he's still there. But interesting apuestas added to that match. And then speaking of the feud between Hammerstone and Cesar Duran, we did get somewhat of a confrontation. Technically, it was supposed to be a official match between Hammerstone and Cesar Duran. This was from the week before that, where Hammerstone accidentally punched Cesar Duran in the face, and then Cesar decided to challenge him to a fight. And we saw what that looked like on the week's episode before. So lots of, again, Lucha Libre matches galore that we haven't talked about recently, but you can just go to Major League Wrestling's YouTube page and find all of the previous episodes of Fusion. Again, Fusion is only 1 hour long. So usually about 3 matches. Very digestible, very easy to watch, very entertaining. And if you are a fan of Lucha Libre, you should be watching Major League Wrestling. Period.
Yeah, it's still one of the best shows for lucha content on a weekly and monthly basis.
Yes.
Especially since the bigger companies are kind of dropping the ball on that.
Yes. So absolutely. I mean, again, we just talked about Flamita, Bandito, Mini Abismo Negro, Microman, Aries, and that's just Aramis, Danny Limelight, that's just within the past few weeks.
And the Parks.
Los Parks, Pagano,
still going.
Bestia, 666, Mil Muertes. I mean, they have probably the most stacked lucha roster in the United States.
I would say so. Other than maybe like, a company like Gale that stacks luchadors because that's what they do, that I'd say it's the most stacked roster.
Yes. So, we will continue to give you the heads up on what to know, about Major League Wrestling. Also, a quick note about a tweet, that was, put out by Court Bauer earlier this week. And this was something that Brendan had found out because I'm not on Twitter. But Court Bauer was asked about, MLW popping up in California, specifically, in San Diego or somewhere in California. And Court Bauer said, saying it without saying it, that they are looking at places in California. San Diego was mentioned, but he also mentioned other cities as well could be in the hunt, as far as doing a Major League Wrestling show out on the West Coast. So that would be very welcomed for us West Coast fans if Major League Wrestling headed out west. It would also bring a pretty big plethora, possibly, of luchadors that would be coming through on the Tijuana side. So that just kind of creates a lot of opportunities and options, especially for Azteca Underground, to be able to possibly do something. Who knows if that means that maybe they go back to Mexico, to do something and then maybe come back up, or, San Diego or somewhere in California is the next place that they do more Azteca Underground tapings. But a very interesting news on that front about Major League Wrestling possibly coming out west.
I actually have put the pieces together, having heard you say that. The work releases started coming through, and MLW could very well be putting those to work too. So we could see some big names in Mexico that haven't been big yet. We could be seeing the next Penta or Bandito pop up on an MLW show. And I say that as those are like two of the biggest breakout from Mexico stars. If you put me on the spot right now and ask me who that person is, that would be Vikingo. But we have the AEW has to actually let him wrestle for the title on the big event before that'll happen. But probably going to happen. Anyway, yeah, just kind of interesting idea. We could be really seeing a big wave of next generation stars coming through MLW if things go that way, where they go to the West Coast and pull some of those Norte wrestlers, lots of great talent there. Commander, love to see him come up. Again, Toxin and anyway, I'm gonna talk to me offline, or talk to me in my inbox, or grab me at Expo Lucha, and we can talk about indie stars that could be the next big deal. Yeah. It'd be fun.
Well, that does it for this week in Major League Wrestling. This is typically where we transition to this week in Lucha Libre history. However, without our resident historian, Dusty, we decided to kind of skip over that. We will be getting back to that in the future, so don't you worry. But of course, you can check out this day in Lucha Libre on luchacentral.com, but it's just not that. There's so much more that's available on luchacentral.com. Brendan, can you let our listeners know what else they can find there?
Well, first off, I have to stand up for myself here. I too am a historian.
That is also true. And I said, as I was saying that, I knew, I was like, shit, this is what happens. This is how I mess up tonight. Because both of you are very much the resident historians of the show.
But I agree. It's Dusty's spot. Dusty usually puts a lot of the energy into it. So it's better to do something completely different or just not do it. And as you gathered from our intro, we're kind of racing to get a lot of things done. So I'm going to switch over to this right now. If you're listening to this, and if you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it's really time to do it. luchacentral.com is the online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish, find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else, find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area, find photo galleries from top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world, and a place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And we get to my favorite part. It's free. It's so 100% free coverage, 100% free access. Just go there. luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Thank you, Brandon. Up next, we're going to be NXT. It feels like it's been forever since we talked about NXT, but here we are. Very interesting developments over the past week, very similar to AEW, I'd like to say, where we had a big event happen this past weekend for WWE in general, a very big weekend. But NXT had In Your House, and we had this pretty big moment between our two feuding families. Tony D'Angelo, the Don of NXT, teamed up with his two boys, Stacks and Two Dimes, versus Legado de Fantasma. And what this match came down to was who outsmarted who. This was the opener for the match, and I think the overall consensus is that it was a great opener and overall great match with story behind it. But the match ended up taking a turn towards the end where Elektra Lopez handed Santos some brass knuckles, which of course is a trademark of Legado. and Two Dimes at the same time handed Tony D'Angelo another lead pipe. And by what I mean by another is that Tony D'Angelo previously had a lead pipe that the ref found, discarded it. Two Dimes had his back, had another lead pipe around. Joaquin Wilde ended up taking that second pipe and ended up using it on Stacks. However, that created enough of a distraction for Tony to steal Santos's brass knuckles and use it on Joaquin Wilde, to knock him out. And then Two Dimes ends up pinning him for the win. And with that, though, this match was not just a family versus family match. This was technically an apuestas match because the winning team or the losing team per se would actually have to now work for the winning team. So now Legado de Fantasma is now under Tony D'Angelo and his boys. So that is very interesting developments for Legado, as again, as we talked about, one of the longest faction in NXT. They were pre the 2.0 era. They've had a very interesting story, very different dynamics of let's face it, Italian mafia versus the cartel range of Mexico. Let's just call a spade here. But it actually has, people interested in the story. Now this week on NXT, Tony D'Angelo was using Legado de Fantasma as their personal assistants, having them chauffeur around, getting their gear. And Tony D'Angelo arranged for Santos Escobar to have a match on NXT this week, and Santos faced Nathan Frazier. And you would think that this would be an easy win for Santos. However, the story behind this match was that there was a lot of tension between Santos and Tony, with Tony pretty much bossing Santos around, telling him what to do, and that created a distraction for Nathan Frazier to I believe it was a springboard net breaker. And eventually, I think, there was the use of a crowbar again that was, luckily not, I don't believe it was used, but, caused a distraction for Nathan Frazier to land the Phoenix Splash for the win. And so, a big loss for Santos, lots of tension within the families. I don't know what this means next. Where do you go from here where now you have Legado absorbed? Are they going to have to fight for their freedom? Or eventually we're going to see Tony and Santos team up? Are we going to see, Legado maybe turn, on Santos in particular and truly align with Tony? Well, who knows? There's so many stories, so many possibilities around this, but between the apuestas for this match and even the storyline, it's a very Lucha-esque storyline with competing and fighting families, and kind of chaos with rules and absorption of people into factions.
Yeah, forceful absorption. Yeah, it's very much like a AAA story. So you could see some AAA style developments come out of it too. It'd be very interesting to see if they kind of lean into the Lucha history, because Santos Escobar there has seen it all in Mexico, because he grew up watching his dad doing that, who then turned into a major authority figure. So yeah, I mean, he's seen it. I won't say he's seen it all, because nobody's seen it all. But if there's somebody that you would think of that might have seen it all, it's Santos Escobar.
Yes. Agreed. Also this week on NXT, a very big win. We had the finals of the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament. Tiffany Stratton versus Roxanne Perez. Roxanne coming out as your winner of this match and the tournament. And with that, she now earns a contract for a title shot of her choosing. She could possibly choose for the women's championship, but it also could mean that she decides to maybe team up with someone and compete for the NXT tag titles as well. Who knows? But a very big win for Roxanne, who's only been with the company for a few short months. Mm-hmm. And now, I mean, we saw what winning the men's breakout tournament for Carmelo Hayes did. I mean, it could be very similar for Roxanne, where she's really catapulted to that title scene literally within the next, few weeks.
Yeah, no, we can, I mean, this is somebody I've believed in for a while. Let's, remind the listeners who she is as well, because it's still kind of a new name change and they may not be remembering, because we've talked about Roxanne, or Roxy, mm-hmm. as she used to be known, a lot on this show. She is, I mean, we're relying on NXT seeing the same things we've been seeing out of her, but she's a prodigy. She's been doing wrestling dedicatedly since at least 16. Like, nobody will admit that they did it before that, but I'm willing to bet she did it before.
Yes.
Just like Nick Wayne totally didn't wrestle until he was 16. Anyway, yeah, so we could see so much out of her, and this is a kind of a sign of faith that the WWE wants to do big things with her. Mm. And I feel like she's so adaptable and so knowledgeable on how to do things in the world of wrestling that it would be a mistake to not put her in that kind of a position, because she will be great for what WWE's vision of the future is, which is bringing in entertainers and athletes from outside of the world of wrestling. Yeah. Because she will be somebody who can guide those kind of athletes through a match really well.
Yeah, and I think, again, she's so young. I mean, she'll be 21 later this year, so she has plenty of time, to develop, to grow. Yep. And also I think the ability to modify, her character, modify, she's just going to have to grow and evolve. But the wrestling skill is there. So one thing that I do think that is going to be a challenge for her, and it still is that she's just been Roxy, mm-hmm. the go-getter, happy-go-lucky person. But what she really will have to develop is a personality. And not to say, why don't you just grow a personality? Just more like a wrestling personality. Because that's one thing that in contrast with Tiffany Stratton, Tiffany may not have the wrestling ability, but she has a very defined character. Mm-hmm. And that is something that, especially now in NXT 2.0, is pretty important, is who is your character? Who is your persona? And that I think is something that Roxanne is still working on. I was talking with Greg DeMarco about this yesterday, actually, and she's pretty lucky that, especially with, being from the independent scene, her NXT name is very similar to her independent name. Yeah. I don't know how many people are going to have that stroke of luck.
Not many. Well, you're going to get a whole bunch of really generic names for people like Scott Scotterson and, stuff like that. And to think, this flashed in my head the other day, to think people were disappointed with Curtis Axel way back in the day. Look at the names now, guys. At least Curtis Axel, he told us, he looked straight into the camera and told us why he chose those two names, and they had meaning and significance. As horrible as everybody teased that name versus the names we're getting today. And I'm not even counting Braun Breaker in that, because he chose that himself.
And that name's been growing on me. I'm not going to lie. It's been growing on me.
But actually that brings up a question that's been circling around, and we'll use the NXT spotlight to do this. Next generation wrestlers like Braun Breaker, and The Rock's daughter
she now has a new name. I forget the full name, but it's Ava Rain, I believe.
Yeah. And the conversation is whether you use that legacy name or not. And I like to point out that in Mexico, you don't get the name just because Dominic was born to Rey Mysterio. He does not automatically get to be the next Rey Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
He has to, both Rey Mysterio Sr. and Rey Mysterio Jr. have to approve if he becomes a Rey Mysterio. And I think that's a better way of handling it. You spend your time, you do a stupid, like, Ninja Turtle gimmick. Legit. There are people that do Ninja Turtle gimmicks. It's actually hilarious. But most of those, if you prove your ability to get over with these silly kids gimmicks, and then they tend to let you live into the legacy. And, the conversation was centered around a non-luchador, but at the same point, I really was thinking about the lucha tradition and how and why it makes sense to me that these wrestlers aren't taking their name. Like a Braun Breaker, he could have had a Steiner name, he'd be over. But, as it is, he's still over because he's that damn good. So
yeah, and I think WWE in particular now is working on trying to build the name of the individual, something that one, they have more ownership over, and two, if it happens more organically where later on, I mean, I've been watching a lot of Young Rock, which is a pretty hilarious show, and it kind of highlights comedically, how he ended up with Lex Cabana before he ended up being Rocky Maivia, which he didn't even like Rocky Maivia to begin with, and eventually that evolved into The Rock, and that's one of the more positive stories of how that turned out. But it also is, that too, where sometimes you have to try and do other names and it eventually happens. Sometimes you could do, even when Charlotte Flair, when she first started in NXT, she was Charlotte, but there was no Flair behind it. The Flair was added on after. So
after she earned it.
So, and after it made more sense, after the alignment with her dad became a lot more of a storyline. So,
well, that was part of earning it for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, she'd also been through some battles at that point, and this wasn't going to be a short-term thing. Was kind of
So, just there's interesting ways around it. But it still is. Back to Roxanne, very fortunate that she's able to do it for those that know her.
Yeah, that makes it easier for fans to be aware of her and follow her career, even if it's casually. If you're just like me and only listening to the results, I can tune in when I hear anything kind of Roxy or Roxanne, because I know that's probably her. And then, interesting stuff.
Well, that does it for NXT. We're going to jump over to Raw very quickly. Again, this is usually a dusty segment. And it's weird to me because I know Raquel Gonzalez has had matches over the past few weeks. We haven't really talked about it. She got a good rub from Ronda Rousey. She's becoming a pretty, good staple on SmackDown. But that's, again, she's not mine anymore. She's moved on, and that covers it.
Gonna have to bug that boy to talk about her more.
Yes. But I do want to mention that there was an interesting, tidbit from the Mysterios on this past Monday Night Raw. Veer Mahan, who is a beast right now, going through everyone, defeated Dominic Mysterio in a match via disqualification. This happened after Rey got involved. Mahan was just ruling over Dominic in the match, and Rey, being the dad that he was and had enough and ended up interfering to save his son. So this may be the next big feud for the Mysterios. It is what it is. With that,
they have to decide they want to do something with one of those two before we start. It's just that's the bottom line. They don't want to let them go because they're big names. They're WWE through and through. But we're not going to see anything big from them until WWE really decides to get behind them.
Yeah, agreed. They really do, but that's not up to us. So, the
good news is Raquel is on that show, and
yes,
they are behind her.
Yeah,
so.
Raquel, they are right behind her. She was also, I believe, on Out of Character with Ryan Satin this week, and some really great clips online. She specifically talks about, her influence to, the Latin community, and how, how important that influence is for her and to young kids. And so I do think that that's one thing WWE hasn't really had before, is a very powerful, strong Latina influence.
No, not really. I won't even say it's for a lack of trying. I just don't think there was the right person in the right place to make it happen. And it's one of the many reasons that I saw her as a potential superstar, because that is one of the things that makes her unique.
Yeah. And I really do hope she broadens it, the fan base. And I think as seeing people like, and kind of this trinity of badass women from NXT, Bianca, Raquel, and the third one escapes me, Rhea.
Rhea, yeah.
Yeah, Rhea. But, they are just very unique, but they're strong, they're badass, they're doing their own thing. And I love how each of them are just in their own element right now. And that's what I hope to see. I think for maybe all the success that, it's interesting how women, I think, are from NXT are set up to be more successful than men. And maybe just because statistically, of course, there's more men that come up from NXT than women. However, if you even look at, if we are looking at the percentage range, I do think that there's more women from NXT who end up just being more successful in the long run. And I think it's just that too, when you have kind of depleted your women's roster and you had to replenish it with women from NXT, it's just a new generation coming in. But they are athletic, they're beautiful, they're talented, they connect with fans, and I think they're really bringing in really the best of so many worlds. So
yeah, I wanna, they got rid of a lot of talent in the roster for sure. But these women that they're bringing up bring everything those women had and more to the table. They're just as beautiful. They're just as charismatic, but they're more athletic. They're more wrestling inclined. They're more ring savvy. I don't know who all is teaching the women down there. I know Sarah Del Rey was one of the big instructors for a long time, and I know, a couple of other big names in women's wrestling were talked about being down there, but whatever they've got in the water there is creating legitimately top-notch talent, for regardless of gender. But it's it's the women that they're doing it with, so it's pretty amazing.
Well, that does it for us on this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to check out luchacentral.com, your place for all things Lucha Libre, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. Yes. You can find Lucha Central on social media at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at Lucha Central.com on Twitter. You can also check out Lucha Central's YouTube page. If you haven't checked it out in a minute, some pretty big news coming out. Masks, Mats, and Mayhem making a return episode that you can find on the YouTube channel. They're making a comeback. And that episode just dropped I believe, just a day ago on the YouTube page. So you can see that happening, as well as all of our previous episodes from the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, both in English and in Espanol, interviews, content that you're not going to find anywhere else. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on social media. Brendan, can you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321. T-shirt guy is all spelled out. And I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook, and I'm all over the Twitters.
I believe Dusty you can find at Dusty Murphy on the social medias as well. A big shout out to him too. I don't mean to brag on his behalf, but I will, that he made his ring announcing debut this past weekend at the I believe
Taco Libre?
Yeah, Taco Libre or Lucha Libre and Taco Festival out in Kansas. And so I saw a few pics of that and super proud of him going out there. And even saw pictures of Ruben doing reffing some matches as well. So
Oh no, that's his brother, Kruben.
Oh yes. I'm sorry. His identical twin brother.
Who's a zebra and totally not in charge of the show. Just shows up and gets a paycheck.
But a big shout out to him, and excited to be with all of you, this coming weekend in Philadelphia. You can find me, Miranda Morales, at the hashtag Miranda on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, no Twitter. Don't forget, if you are listening to the show on your favorite podcast streaming platform like Spotify, Podbay, Google Play, iTunes, any of that, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe and get a notification every time a new episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast drops. Leave a 5-star rating and let us know your thoughts in a review. Go ahead.
I do have a quick request that's unique for this week. We've mentioned several times we're going to be at Expo Lucha. If you hear this while we're at Expo Lucha, I'll put this up on socials too. And there's somebody at Expo Lucha you want us to talk to, get a picture of, whatever, let us know, because we'll be happy to do that. And Miranda and I will both be walking around with microphones, so we could even potentially do interviews. Although a lot of the really cool luchadors don't speak a lot of English, so just fair warning. Anyway, just throwing that out there. I'll put that up on social media as well. We already did the socials where you can grab us at, so keep going with your end of show, Miranda. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that is a good thing. Again, we are all going to be at Expo Lucha this weekend. We're going to be excited to see you all there, excited to come back and share our experiences about it in upcoming episodes. So make sure that you are, keeping up. Follow Expo Lucha on social media, Expo Lucha Live, Masked Republic as well. And that's also a good point. So there's some also exclusive news that have just dropped as of today, that on Saturday night there will be a Lucha Libre show that will be made available on Fight TV.
We can say that now.
Yes, it has been officially shared. It was something that Ruben had kind of shared with us last week, but now we have the official news that Under the Influence of Lucha Libre card that's going to be on Saturday night, June 10th, will be available on Fight TV. I believe for $14.99. It will have live English commentary from AAA's own Larry Dallas and Joe Dabrowski. So the team that gives. Go ahead.
I said you could run into them at Expo Lucha. I didn't know we'd be getting them on commentary, but
yes, they're going to be on commentary. And matches that have been announced for that show. Of course, your main event is going to be Dragon Lee versus Laredo Kid. We're going to have a mixed tag match of Lady Maravilla and Sam Adonis versus Kira and Mr. Iguana versus Reina Dorado and Papadon.
that match is going to be so fire.
Yes.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Lindsay Dorado and Frightmare versus Black Taurus and Addis. Psychosis and Astrolux versus Damian 666 and Demes. And much, much more. But there is a link. You can check out Fight TV on social media. Right now on my story, I have a link to it, but also Expo Lucha has shared a link to it as well. So you can purchase it and watch it with, again, live commentary in English. So
I want to stress this as an extra selling point since I know it's on Fight now. This is Psychosis in the ECW arena where he became a superstar. So it's $14.99 if you can't make it to the show. We already talked in the interview with Ruben about what a bargain the show is. So it's going to be historic, and now you have the ability to see it. So come on. Just do it. Make it happen. It will, I promise you. It is a loaded card, and there's a piece of wrestling history that's guaranteed to be there because Psychosis in that arena. So, sorry, Miranda, I keep jumping in.
No, that's a great selling point to it. So, thank you again, everyone, for listening. We can't wait to see you at Expo Lucha. Go ahead and follow all the socials. Go ahead and order the show on Fight TV if you can't make it. Tickets still available. If you think you'll be near Philly in the next few days, go ahead. It's definitely worth the price of admission. And we will be back with you next week to talk all that was Expo Lucha and much, much more on the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. For Brendan Barr and Dusty Murphy, I'm Miranda Morales, and we will catch you next week.